Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our Lunch and Learn webinar toward compassionate business in the Southern Tier, mental health needs and action steps. In today's webinar, to me, when it comes to COVID recovery work, webinars like today's discussion are some of the most important things that we can do to help our community recover from the impacts over the last 2 years, but even before that. A little bit about me. My name is Stacy Duncan. I serve as CEO of the Leadership Alliance, which is a strategic partnership between the Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce, your host today, and the agency, which is the county's industrial development agency. We represent on the chamber side more than 800 businesses here in the Greater Binghamton region. And as you can imagine, like many chambers throughout upstate New York, the majority of those members are small businesses that are all hands on deck, dealing with a lot of challenging issues right now. And the events of the past 2 years have made it very clear why many professionals and executives, what they already know, but do not always have the time to prioritize. And we do feel that to build a vibrant economy, you need to have a healthy community. Simply put, we must focus on what it is that makes us well in order to truly grow and thrive here as a community. And over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, after time spent in isolation and finances for many businesses and individuals alike running tighter and tighter, employee stress, burnout, substance abuse, and other mental health concerns skyrocketed. These concerns have a ripple effect within our community. And as business owners know all too well, what is critical to provide their employees with the assistance that they need, at the end of the day, it often comes at the cost of the organization's financial health and productivity. This is truly a business case to be made for prioritizing workplace wellness. By centering on wellness in the workplace, Southern Tier employers will be better equipped to address their employee needs and increase health and productivity for them as individuals as well. There are a variety of ways to get immersed in workplace wellness. We're going to talk about some really important data that we've learned and discovered over this period of time. And we're going to encourage businesses, the attendees today, and businesses throughout Broome County and the Southern Tier region to reach out to the Leadership Alliance and the CREST team, which you're going to hear about in just a moment, to become part of this discovery process. We truly think it's the most meaningful work we can be doing right now. And with that, it is my absolute pleasure to turn the floor over to Jen Gregory. Jen's the Executive Director of Southern Tier 8, a regional planning and economic development group. Jen is our fearless leader of the CREST, the Collaborative Recovery Empowerment of the Southern Tier Initiative. She's going to talk about a little bit about what CREST is and how it led us to today's webinar. Jen.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, so on the team, I'm Jen Gregory with Southern Tier 8. We're your regional board and access to funding with the Appalachian Regional Commission and Economic Development Administration for nonprofits, municipalities, and communities. And also on here, I will introduce Dot Richter, who's with our staff, and Lillian Cornish with our organization. And this work today, we actually started assessing our local economy, workforce needs, and obstacles we may have to wellness over the last few years. And we were able to bring in the expertise of Joel Bennett, thanks to a grant with the Appalachian Regional Commission and through EDA CARES funding. Specifically because, as the Appalachian Regional Commission saw it, we have a real issue in our region that it impacts the workforce with substance use disorder. So how do we get folks that have faced that challenge, that are in recovery, whether it's opioids or alcoholism, which what a case with the pandemic, right? Those cases were just on the rise. We're one of 30 communities that from here down to Alabama that embarked on this program to say, what could happen if we bring together the educational teams and prevention, like Julie with LEAF in Oneonta. She had some real strides in the Oneonta market with this. And that was real inspiration for looking to see what else we can do and expand that to our region with the help of Stacy and Amy and her team at the Chamber and Leadership Alliance, as well as Bob Murphy with Broome-Tioga Workforce. So if you're looking for employees, he's offering training programs through this program. And then how do we lift and support the folks that are working with those in recovery at the substance use disorder treatment facility? So we're working with Lisa Herschel at Family Counseling in Portland, and she also assists with Broome County and others, and Angela Sullivan with the council in Tompkins County. And as many of you may know, she's just opened a new treatment facility for everyone. So it's been an opportunity to really bring this to the level that how do we support mental wellness in our workplace for those of us that can stay well and those of us that are in recovery, to support them. And how do we do that as employers? Because our goal is to make sure you have the workforce that you need, they have the skill set that they need, and they can stay working for you in a healthy environment, because we know how detrimental that is to retrain folks. And you'll see as Joel goes through some of the stats in this workplace wellness, hopefully you've seen that, Stacy shared that. It's quite alarming. We don't have some of the resources here in the region that other parts of the state do. So there'll be more that comes out of this program. So this is the start and introduction for many of you. So thank you for joining on this Lunch and Learn. And I'll be speaking later too with additional ways you can get involved with the program. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Joel so that you can enjoy his enlightenment as much as we have. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thank you. Can you all see my screen and the slides? Okay. So it's really wonderful to have this opportunity. I'm going to not take up too much time here. I just want to thank Jen and Stacy and Julie we've been doing this work, preparing for this for the past 9 months. And it's not only a workplace, but also a workforce strategy. And that's so important because that rarely happens. It's either one or the other. So real big hats off to economic development. And I also need to acknowledge the Office of Substance Abuse and Addiction Services that funded part of this survey that you're about to see through Julie's efforts and other collaborators. So this is really a multi-agency collaborative project. I'm going to be talking now about the survey in part 1. I then want to pull back and look at the bigger picture of mental health in the country as a whole. And then I'm going to talk about compassionate business. And I'll turn it over to Julie toward the end on what you can do. And in fact, I'm going to preview that because this is not meant to just be capacity building. It's meant for you to take action. And it's not just meant for business. It's also meant for any workplace, for-profit, small government, local government. It's really a time that we have to collaborate and stretch out and help each other in the community. So with that, just a little bit about us. You know, we've done work with a variety of different organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, military, and our work has been recognized as evidence-based because we have been able to, through clinical trials, demonstrate that we can reduce employee stress, reduce behavioral health risks, and also improve the culture of the workplace. So big picture, the pandemic, this has already been said, but I need to say it again. The pandemic, racial strife, and various stressors associated with vaccine mandates and decisions about remote hybrid work have placed enormous pressures on human resources, workplace leaders, and community stakeholders. They need to adapt and they need to strategize and they need help. Mostly what we're saying here, the old ways are not working and our workforce is suffering, not just the workplace. The old ways are not working. So we need a solid well-being culture strategy. And Jen just said that. We need to create healthy environments, not just for people who are in recovery, but for everybody. And this is going to help with recruitment. It's going to help with retention. It's going to help with growth. During times of workplace stress, we can take on more, and we often do take on more, especially in the helping services, in the health services, and you'll see that in the data. We take on more and put well-being on the back burner rather than lean in, plan, and program. All of this is about leaning in, planning, and program. If you are here, you are being asked to lean in and help us. You're asked to participate. You're asked to reach out to other leaders you know and ask them to participate, because we have programs that work. We just need to disseminate them. As a quick tool, and I'll be talking about this later, the Greater Good Center at Berkeley has a compassionate organizations quiz. So for whatever reason you have to drop off, please make sure you take this quiz and come back later and watch the recording. But that's a quiz. What we really want to do is make it real and make it local. So you'll be provided a link at the end, and Julie will talk about this. You have 4 options that we have developed in partnership with Julie and Stacy and Jen. 1, you can schedule a free workplace wellness training assessment. We'll sit down with you, we'll have a conversation. We've got trained educators, and you'll hear how you can do that. Number 2, we have a whole training that we can provide to you. And in fact, you'll be hearing about that as well. This is a training for managers, employees, or staff. Number 3, I'll be speaking at June 10th, and I think there might be a link in the chat box coming. There'll be a breakfast. It's going to be, I think, a free breakfast. I don't know, but there will be scones and coffee. You can get involved with the CREST project also, this collaborative recovery empowerment of the Southern Tier. So when you look at this, right, we're talking about a multi-level approach. You, your staff, interacting with other leaders in the community, or looking to help the whole region. There's something for everybody. Okay, and maybe Julie can put this number in the chat box and the email, Kylene, Jocelyn, and the phone number. If you want to start, reach out now. People are standing by, ready for your call. First one to call gets special prize. Okay, part 1, the survey. This is what we found. Now, first, if you haven't gotten this link, the link was placed. You can get it. Maybe Amy will put it again. You can download the survey. In addition to the people at the top, the Southern Tier, Family Children's Society, the Leadership Alliance, we also had help out of the Rochester and Monroe County area. And I'm not going to go through all of these different groups, but this has really been a major collaborative effort. New York rocks. And we got 2 great quotes, one from Ray Pucci, Delaware County, and he said, "The rewards are great when any leaders stop to promote wellness. We start a ripple effect that lifts the economic well-being of the entire community." And one from Diane Cohn, Executive Director and co-founder of Finger Lakes Reuse, she said, "It's about community, having a sense of purpose and stepping in to help. Wellness applies beyond our own self. When for-profit and nonprofit leaders support employees, they contribute to the surrounding community as a whole." And I'll show you data that says this is the way now. This is the only way. We can't let businesses do it by themselves. We all have to chip in and stand in together. So what about the survey? We had respondents from 22 counties, as you can see here, many from the Southern Tier, 47%, and from the 5-county region in and around Monroe County. You'll see samples ends vary by analysis. They represented a mix of nonprofit, for-profit, and government public administrative entities. So you can see what that data looks like across the entire region for this survey. I'll be speaking about both large and small, Southern Tier and beyond, but I wanted you to see the big picture. Now, they came from organizations of varying sizes. You can see here, really from micro all the way to large. But the bulk of them were 100 or less. Various industries were represented. The most was healthcare and social assistance, followed by educational services. And over 75% of respondents were clearly in leadership or executive roles, C-suite, director or vice president, managers or supervisors, seniors and owners. And we even had some owners in here. And you can see how that's broken down by less than 500 FTE and greater than 100 or more FTE. So you'll be hearing more from this data, but I want you to know, who is it coming from? Now, importantly, when you compare all respondents to the Southern Tier, the Southern Tier tended to have more smaller businesses, right? 57% in the entire state were from businesses, workplaces really, of less than 100, and 70% was the corresponding number for the Southern Tier. So the big question here, and I'm going to actually ask you to put it in chat box your answer to this in a moment. With regard to stress and mental health, what do these leaders want and why do they want it? So we asked them, please select the top 2 services you're most interested in to help reduce employee health issues. Would you like depression and stress counseling, coaching or counseling, manager training on stress, positive resilience and thriving, mind-body practices, education on sleep habits and sleep disorders, communication, team building, and soft skills development. So I'm going to ask you quickly here in the chat box, what was their number 1? What do you think their number 1 was? Just write it in the chat box, and while you're doing it, I'll go through and describe some of this very quickly. What do you think their number 1 was? Now, we had others as well, and what we were doing here is not just looking at what they wanted, but what they had. So you'll see later in the data, I'll also talk about programs that were actually in place. So the results are coming in, and many are saying B or D, manager stress. Maybe you guys read the report. Okay, lots of cheaters in here. Okay, moving along. In fact, and this was in this region, the manager training on stress was one of the biggest, but you'll see the values flip around a lot, and you'll see that these are very close to each other. There's not a lot of difference here in terms of first and second choice. So they really want everything, which is a good thing because, as you'll see, they need everything. All right, this is all New York show. So why would respondents want to provide training to managers to help them deal with their stress or anything for that matter? Are they burdened? Are they experiencing lost productivity? What about lost employee productivity? What we found, and a big shout out to Amy Williamson here for the design of the report, at least 50% reported financial losses due to well-being concerns, right? So at least half are we asked them, are you experiencing these problems? And if you are, how much is it costing you? So you can see the big one here was employee stress and burnout. We also 65% on the Southern Tier, and that was in the state as a whole. Employee stress and burnout was the biggest driver of administrative time and lost employee productivity, followed by employee mental health, followed by lack of sleep and fatigue, and lack of general health. We also had asked about alcohol and drugs, and that also contributed as well. We're only showing you the top 4 here. We also found that leaders are losing precious time. They lose by themselves approximately 39% of their time. So this is the single individual. So when I show you the financial estimates, you'll go, well, that's just that individual that would be multiplied. So a lot of what I'm about to share is conservative estimates. We also found, and Jen referenced this, Southern Tier workplaces are significantly less likely to have programs that address concerns. Part of that is due to the smaller businesses or the smaller organizations, which, as you'll see, smaller organizations just don't have it. But it's also true for the whole region, regardless of size. In fact, this is partly due to workplace size. So you'll see here, all respondents comparing smaller, less than 100, 52% have no program, compared to the larger, 16% have no program. And in fact, in the larger organizations, 57% have 2 or more, and 17% only have 1. This is for the whole region. Now, look at the southern tier. The lack of programs is even greater in the southern tier. Comparing smaller, 95%, only 5% of the smaller organizations have anything, okay? And the larger, in fact, in the southern tier, the larger seem to be doing better. So it's an opportunity for the larger organizations to help the smaller organizations. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. That's the triple bottom line I'm going to be referencing. Social capital in the counties, social capital across the region, organizations helping each other. Now, they do have something in common, though. In both sizes, manager training on stress and communication and team building. Everybody wants that regardless of size. And so that's what we're going to give to you. Thank you, Julie Dostal. That's what you're going to have the opportunity to receive. And you can see how the rest of this falls out, that these were the top choices of what they wanted, okay? And we're focusing on these two, and we'll also be doing our best to incorporate the others, especially anti-stigma campaigns. They'll be woven in here, and education on health promotion integrates with substance use. So a lot of the other things are folded into the training that you'll be able to gain access to. Now, this is financial data because I had to do it. It's hot off the press. What you're looking at here is the relationship between mental health exposures and actual lost employee financial costs due to their spending, employees being burdened with this. We got financial data from the survey. And what you can see, if you look at the range on the vertical axis, that goes up to $60 million, okay, at the top, but it's $10 million toward the bottom. And you'll see the more mental health related exposures as a larger organization has, there's really no change. Regardless of what they're exposed to, employees are all experiencing costs. And these are the mental health related exposures I talked about earlier: stress, mental health, lack of sleep, and fatigue. That's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The key here is let's look at the smaller organizations. This blows my mind. Why this blows my mind is because the more exposures the smaller organization has, the more costs they experience, right? That's what this line is. What's important, though, is the vulnerability. Even with two exposures, look at the costs. Whereas here, the more exposures, not necessarily costs. Smaller organizations are much, much more vulnerable. And if they have one incident, they can close their business. So that's what we're dealing with here. And that's what we need to take steps to address, even with one incident. And they're losing money as a result of this. So in fact, we did the average. They lose on average $108,000 a year for an exposure. The corresponding number for the larger business is 3.4 million. Most people just follow the money and help the larger organizations, but we have to help those smaller organizations because they don't have the resources. They just don't have the resources. So that's part one, that's the survey data. Now I want to talk about the bigger picture of mental health in the country, and here's why. Everything I've seen from the smaller tier, from the southern tier, the smaller tier, sorry, the southern tier, sorry, Jen, that was not a Freudian slip. Everything I've seen from the southern tier suggests to me that the efforts that are being done there can be a role model for the rest of the country. I am very serious about this, that region of the state has the capacity, especially through the collaboration with workforce development, the agency, the Binghamton Chamber, and the other chambers, right? You saw from Ray Pucci, and we even had Bob Duffy from Rochester participate. you guys have so much collateral and collaborative opportunity that you can do something. So I want you to see what this could mean in terms of sending a message to the rest of the country. Everyone talks about the great resignation. It's a misnomer. It's not just the great resignation. There's actually data to show that really what it is what we call the great disconnect. That the employers don't understand, i.e. have empathy for or are compassionate about what's actually going on in the workforce. That's the disconnect. That's due to current political and racial schisms, right? But what's really driving these? These are the tip of the iceberg. This was a McKinsey and Company survey that asked on the left what employers saw and on the right what employees experienced. And the number one thing I want to point out here is this. 20% of employers report that improving access to substance use disorder treatment and recovery is a priority. But what's important, and all of this data here, 84% of employee respondents with the disorder report that it's challenging to access care. 31% of employers report that improving access to mental illness treatment is a priority. 67% who have a problem report challenging access to care. 71% of employers with frontline employees report supporting mental health well or very well. Only 27% of frontline employee respondents agree. There's a disconnect in perception. That's why these surveys are so important and need to be shared and talked about, not just shared, but talked about. So this was a national survey, and McKinsey does a great job with surveys. This is from a colleague, Alexander Alonso, Chief Knowledge Officer, and he's got a new book coming out I highly recommend. National survey, thousands of HR professionals. Many, more than 1 year into the COVID-19 pandemic, US workers say burnout persists. 41% felt burnt out from their work, the same as in May 2020. 48% feel depleted at the end of the workday, which was actually an increase. 41% feel emotionally drained. So this has been consistent over time. Workplace culture can make or break an employee's experiences at work at home. 59% leave work feeling exhausted, and we found that in our work with Julie. We did a lot of interviews and focus groups, but 30% say their workplace culture makes them irritable at home. The environment, going back to what Jen said at the very beginning, is what we are here to change, and that's what we know we can change. Why are people leaving and not returning? Executives say better career advancements, better benefits, somewhere a lower cost of living. But look at what workers say. Not only better compensation, but better work-life balance, 42%. That doesn't even show up in the executives. Again, a disconnect in terms of what people are wanting, big disconnect. Now, what I want to say is the solution is starting to happen. There are a number of telehealth, telemental health products that have been coming out, and I'm not going to go through all of them. There's been actually an increase in EAP utilization in the past year when you look at national data. But there are 3 hard truths, which is why this collaboration is so important. Hard truth number 1, federal, state, county, and public health lack the resources, the mandates, or the strategy to scale a solution for mental health and the addiction crisis, especially in the community and especially in the smaller organizations. Hard truth number 2, the employee assistance programs that are out there and the wellness programs that are out there are limited by themselves. And this article from STAT, the marketplace cannot scale a solution. Companies are increasingly relying on market-based interventions like apps, telemental health, wearables, all kinds of things that are coming out because of innovations in the larger tech market. What we know is that can only do so much. This is the most important thing I want to share with you today, because you have to work locally. You have to work at the community level. Here are the key blind spots. There are DARTHA therapists. In fact, there's actually people who are in the therapeutic behavioral health fields are leaving. They can't take it anymore, right? Number two, it's just when you look at this article, it's hard to scale a business strategy for mental health. Let's just face it. It's not something that everybody's knocking down the door to pay money on, right? Three, more and more wellness coaches are being asked to do this, but they don't have mental health training. So there are challenges to doing harm, okay? And number four, mental health is also a social justice issue that is ignored by a lot of this work. Finally, these apps ignore the influence, again, of the work culture. We have to use tools that help with the work culture, and those are the tools that Julie has. Again, people are standing by, telephones are not ringing. Okay, so coming back to this, what are the problems? These are books and articles that came out that document significant problems in the United States overall community. And it's no surprise to everybody. We keep talking about the country, but the truth is change happens locally in the Southern Tier area. That's where it's going to happen, not in the country. There's overwhelming evidence that social determinants in the US culture foster workaholism. How many of you are workaholic and willing to admit it? Raise your hand now. Number two, there are limits in the insurance sector and the pharmaceutical industrial complex. They can only do so much. Number three, stigma of self-care persists, including healthcare providers. I have clients who are healthcare providers. It's amazing how much they just don't take the time, don't have the time, and don't plan to take care of themselves. There's also marginalization of mental health benefits. And also, the data show there's a loss of compassion. There's actually been a decline in empathy and compassion in the culture. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts about this? What are you going to do about this? How can you help? And in the time I have, I'm going to give you some of that answer, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for discussion. We really need a multi-level view. Compassion is always seen as a one-to-one thing, mindfulness, right? Or it's a big global event, but compassion is a universal and transcendent process across all levels. This is what's needed now. We need to have compassion for individuals, for teams, for the community, for organizations working together, right? And it's both a bottom-up and a top-down process. Alignment is key now, and we need to do both. We need to have people working from the bottom up and from the top down. The triple bottom line, to me, in the business sector and in economic development, is one of the most powerful evidence-based messages. The way to combine compassion is with corporate social responsibility. The triple bottom line in any business, for-profit or nonprofit, is to combine financial efforts, environmental efforts, and social responsibility. There are two views of the triple bottom line, and I'll show you the results of this research. The business case view, we'll do it because it's going to enhance our financial bottom line. That's the business case. But the integral view is that we can do all of it together. We can achieve financial goals, environmental goals, and societal goals by working with the tensions and trying to make them all work. What we know from the research is that firm valuation of those achieving high performance in all three triple bottom line components was 35% higher than those with no high performance in any component. The research shows, right? This was a study that was done, that the more you focus on all three, the more you're going to have profit. not only do they show this, and this is the way you embrace the tension is with compassion. There's so many case studies that have been done here. I can't even begin to tell you how much research has been done to show that this is true. The more you focus on all three, the more you raise your profit. We have to get out of just the profit-centric mindset. That's actually hurting us because people are only focusing at the larger dollars while the smaller businesses are suffering. We have many practice tools. I'm not even going to go through these. There are so many tools out there. One of them is the Compassionate Workplace Quiz. So just to give you a sense, this is again the Greater Good Berkeley quiz. These are some items from that quiz. Go ahead and fill it out. Have your colleagues fill it out. Have your boss fill it out. When I see that someone in my organization is hurting in some way, I feel comfortable offering assistance or help. In my organization, people are expected to leave their emotions at the door and not share their trouble. The leaders in my organization take time to talk and listen to people who are having a hard time. I want to talk about number 3. Julie and her team of educators are there to listen. They have been trained to listen. And what we've learned is that very often the owner doesn't have even time for have anyone listen to them. So why we are doing that first thing is we're here to listen and help you. Even if you don't do anything, we're happy to listen to you. So next steps. So now I'm going to turn it over to the illustrious, the most esteemed, the world renowned.
How can I even talk after that? I don't know. Thank you, Joel, and thank you so much for that presentation. It's just amazing that we've gone through this process of capacity building, gone through this process of talking to business owners, business leaders, business managers across the region, and the information that we've discovered of what they need, what they want. And to find out that we have the opportunity to provide that. And right now, because this is grant funded through the Appalachian Regional Commission in partnership with Southern Tier 8 and through the Office of Addiction Supports and Services through a partnership with the Central New York region, we have the opportunity to provide people with some of these resources without charging them a penny to do it. So if you're a manager, if you're a business owner, if you're a business leader, if you're an HR person here today, and any of these things ring true to you, please feel free to reach out to us. I put Kylene's number. Kylene's our project director, project coordinator, and she is absolutely ready to take your call and absolutely ready to take your email. Drop her an email, talk to her about what you need. We'll get back in touch with you and be able to have a conversation with you. So while I'm talking, if you don't mind, one of the things that I neglected to do at the beginning of our time here together, would you please in the chat box drop your name, your position, and your business in the chat? Your name, your position, and your business in the chat. I would very much appreciate that. So one of the things that we can offer moving forward, these are actual tangible next steps that you can take about building a compassionate workplace, about doing some of these things in the workplace that it's very hard for us now to expect that government, regional, other or outside organizations can do for us. We would be happy to schedule a free workplace well-being training assessment with you. That is a one-on-one conversation. We will sit down, have a conversation with you, listen to you, find out what it is that you need, as well as find out what it is that your business, your organization, your workplace needs. That's about a 45-minute to an hour conversation. And we would be delighted to have that conversation with you. We can also, if you see this and you are ready to go with wanting to impact positively the culture of your organization so that the individuals in your organizations have a much greater opportunity to experience well-being in their workplace, so that we can reduce those mental health impacts, so that we can reduce those substance use impacts, we can schedule a training. We're ready to go. We can come in and we can schedule a training at your time with the amount of time that you have to give us. We can do it for departments. We can do it for your business. We can do it for your managers, your leadership. However, we can make it work for you. We will let you know that we have an exciting opportunity coming up on June 10th. I believe Amy's going to pop the registration link. The registration's just open. It's not completely like filled out with all the pretty stuff yet, but we can certainly get you registered. There is a June 10th breakfast morning training for managers and leaders. And we would love to have you come and join us in that training to take this to the next step. And so with that, I am going to turn this over to my dear colleague, Jen Gregory, who's going to talk a little bit about how you can get further involved with CREST.
Thanks, Julie. There's a lot coming in here, so I'm excited to see everyone being engaged, and that's part of it. Okay, Julie, sincere. What a great opportunity for us. And see, we're working too much. We're not taking care of our wellness. Stacy and I are the sniffles with all of this. So I don't know what training program that will be, Joel, but you know, I really just so excited. You know, Joel giggles a lot with us, I think, because we've been working together for a while, as he said, right? And this is in the works. So we feel that comfort. But listen to his message, see his stats there, because they're really powerful. And I think you could see from the one slide how many people he's worked with, how many organizations he's helped. And those larger organizations, like he said, they have the money to do this. This is our opportunity through ARC to help the small businesses that you need help with. And while I was writing, while Julie was talking, because I'm thinking of the next measure and next program we're working on together. Amy and Stacy at the Leadership Alliance are thinking of continued programs to bring forward. So, you know, this is your opportunity to get engaged now, to meet with us at any step across the way too. If you find another colleague that you're working with, or you're going to a networking event and you say, boy, you're struggling with this as well, share those phone numbers. So, you know, if you have any questions, because I rattled through pretty quickly who our partners are, reach out to Kylene with Julie. And we also have an opportunity too, if you're looking for employees that are trained, that are familiar with the resources. As Joel mentioned, we do have a lot of resources. You know, everyone complains about New York State taxes, but we have the resources here to help out with community issues as well. So those are your good tax dollars that work. So part of that resource is our workforce investment boards that offer training and upskilling programs for those employees. And what you can do is call on one of our partners here who can set you in the right place. And I'm sorry, I'm playing because I'm trying to find my screen share, which this is the wrong screen. Sorry, I'll stop that share. And I want to show you something in a PDF. So I'm sorry.
Also, while you're doing that, if there are any comments or questions, you know, we're all here and we have time for discussion if there's any questions that you would like to have us address.
Thanks, Joel. That's true. This is open for conversation, not just us speaking at you. So if you happen to be in the realm of manufacturing, there's a training program now that's coming up, or if you know someone in the community that's prepared for that. These classes start June 1st, but there are other classes, whether it's skilled nursing, that he's had courses in, or other skill sets. Feel free to call this number 778-6440 and ask about the training options there, because I think our workforce investment boards are well underutilized, and they're a partner on this program, and maybe that's how you found out about this as well. But the chambers and the workforce investment boards are making investment decisions now on this type of training that can be offered to you and your employees. So let us know. That's probably one of the first steps as well. Granted, yes, if you are looking for that information, and Joel went through so much, but what I really want to emphasize here is why he showed you so much too. He builds these training programs, and he's worked with Julie's team to design them for your needs. So that's why there's this process of asking the questions too, because you all have those individual needs at the small business level. And that's where he has worked hand in hand. And it's really an exciting opportunity for you. And you'll see when you go through it, it's pretty cool to hear, what Joel and what Julie's team, the questions that they ask. It's really in depth.
Yeah, so Jen, there is a question about that, if I can. There's a
absolutely. I'd be happy to turn it back over.
Yeah, but it's related to what you just said. Does the free assessment include actionable steps, or does any further planning come with a fee? It's all free. The whole thing is free because of the funding. So the point of the assessment, following right on what Jen said, is we want to know what you're going through. And we want to build something that's geared toward you. We have a variety of tools. In fact, I could have shown that today. In addition to the training that we offer on stress management, we have tools for creating that positive communication that was asked for and creating that climate. We have tools for getting involved in a more in-depth way if you wanted to have some of your employees become mental health ambassadors. We have a training for that. And so it's not just a one-stop shop. This is what's different. Most of the mental health promotion programs that are offered, not most, but many, it's just like, okay, it's like a lunch and learn. This goes deeper. If you don't want deeper, we won't give it to you. But the point is we want to understand you. So the assessment is really meant to be a dialogue. It's really more of a dialogue than it is an assessment. We have found that sometimes somebody will sit down. They may not be able to sit down. They'll have an appointee sit down, maybe somebody in HR, or in a small organization. It may not be the owner. It could be the owner's spouse. We talk to whoever, right? And they'll sit for us. Okay, I have a half hour. We're sitting there an hour and a half later, because finally somebody has sat down and listened to them. And that's what this is all about. It's all about taking the time, not showing data after data after data, but just connecting, right? That's why we call this compassionate business, right? It starts with listening. By the way, doesn't necessarily mean that, we're all good at it, right? But at least we're trying, so.
So can I add, to give you a sense too, so when we sat down with Joel, this I found most interesting in the Zoom, he'll have us check in with each other to go. So there's a start that you could start with your own team right there. And it really, as Joel says, you get deeper into that conversation. That's a really quick thing to do when you start on that Zoom. What scale, you go to the hospital, they ask you, what's your pain level? This is, where are you checked in? Is your screen on? Are you listening? Are you finishing up the emails to each other? That's your opportunity to connect with one another. And Joel, that's just a fantastic tool that you offered our group. That is something very simple to start this compassionate approach with.
Yeah, thank you. And it's not, I know you keep talking about me. It's Julie. How many educators have been trained, Julie? How many do we have now?
We have, I believe right now, 7 educators in our cadre. And so whatever county that you're in either the Southern Tier 8 or Central New York, we have an educator that can work with you, a facilitator that can work with you. So we're really pleased that we are able to have the coverage that we have. And they've all been trained in this process, and they've all been trained on how to sit down and have that time with you if you want to go through with the needs assessment.
Jules, did you get your question answered? Was there a follow-up? Are you good, or?
Yes, thank you.
Do you have anything in mind that you are thinking about, or?
Not at this moment. We are starting a worksite wellness committee, and I'm just kind of trying to gather information that's going to be relevant for that committee.
Perfect.
Right, glad you're here.
Well, if you need anyone from this group to come and present to your committee, we would be more than happy to come and have a conversation, even with just the committee.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I just want to say again, if you haven't put your name and your business and your position in the chat, please do that. We're trying to make sure that we know that which organizations we're able to reach.
Stacy, do you have any comment or question after this and how you guys are related and involved?
Yeah, I would just offer the same thing. I mean, if you or any businesses that you're working with, you know, we want to be a resource and a partner at the chamber, and just listen. If that's all, if that's the best resource we can bring is a set of ears, we're willing to do that. But also, you know, I think this is not for us a one-off by any stretch. This is foundational work that we're making a priority very much for our community. We think it's, you know, part of building community and doing good economic development is the well-being of our community. And I can just say, you know, I'm curious to do that quiz myself. But it was incredibly eye-opening for me as an employer, you know, leading a team. We immediately looked at what resources we had, which probably, like many, were not many. And we've made some changes already and sought out some resources. So we're right along. We're going along for the same ride as we want all of you to do, and be there with you.
Yeah, unless there's questions, I just make a couple of quick comments. You know, again, I want to emphasize that it's for-profit, nonprofit, and governmental. We have to really think that way. Those of you who are on the call who are working in nonprofit or working in behavioral health, we know that there's so much burnout. And, you know, compassion fatigue, for those of you who don't know, that's a thing. And we know that we can help with that. So if you're listening today, whether you're listening right now or listening to the recording, please reach out, because we are very interested in, and the grant helps us provide education regardless of business type or organizational type. So I want to just clarify that when I talked about the blitz scaling article, it's hard to scale. Workplaces, workplace owners, people who are on your boards of directors, who might be involved in an organization, please approach them as well, because you just never know. You might. What I have found, having done this, oftentimes it's when someone has an incident, a recent incident, a suicide in the family, a teenage overdose, right? An employee who suddenly quits and something happens, right? That's when people pay attention, and then they just go right back, right? So please, you never know who the message might land on. As you can see, there's a great need. This is an evidence-based program, so we really want you to take advantage of it. What can I say?
Great. And the other opportunity that we have that we can offer is that if you are a member of an association of any kind, then and you wanted to share, you wanted us to come and share this with an association, we are very happy to come do that as well. So if it's the Lions or the Rotary or an industry association, please let us know. We really want to share this information so that across the region, we can do our small part to be able to help build a healthier workforce.
Yeah, and I have to make sure I don't neglect, as you saw, the sample included people who work in educational services. So we had higher education, we had school districts. Let me tell you, teachers, principals, superintendents, college staff, they're as much in need of this as anyone. So if you work with a university or have any connection, we could, very often they're like, oh, we're good, we got it covered, we got our own. But the truth is they don't. And we've seen that. So we're, it's a one-stop shop, phone number, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. Dot, you want to say anything?
Just glad to be here, glad to be part of this, and I'm really, really excited to be working with more people as more people get involved with this. So thank you all for attending and being part of this wonderful presentation.
Okay, so I will turn it over to whoever's ending this.
Jen, do you want to close? You want me to close? We'll both close. I'll just say,
Go ahead, Stacy.
yeah, I'll just say thank you for attending and thank you for being interested in this. And we appreciate the time and look forward to working with you more deeply.
Beautiful.
Thank you all.
Have a great afternoon.